What is up, everyone? It is back. Mock Draft Monday. I am joined by my good friend Troy Honecker. Troy, how are you, sir?
I'm good. This is my first one, being a part of it. I've definitely watched them last year, so I'm popping the mock draft cherry, as it were. And first off the bat, a lot of names I was unfamiliar with, which is always fun. But yeah, super excited to get into draft season. We've seen hearing names, a lot of different prospects, rumors of trades and stuff already. So excited to break it down and learn about some of these later round picks that we're all pretty unfamiliar with, and names I'm sure we'll see throughout this pre-draft process.
I'm glad you mentioned kind of just like still kind of learning these prospects. I think that's a great segue to talk about what Mock Draft Monday is really about. We did this last year during the draft season. I think we're starting a little earlier this year because things we need something as Cardinals fans to look forward to. But we did mock draft mock draft Monday last off season, and it was for me it was probably one of the most fun things I've done with the Cardinal Rule. It's just this is probably the thing I've enjoyed as much more than anything. One, I love the draft, so nerding out and learning about the prospects. Two, there's just this great group of folks who are with us. Hopefully they're in the chat, and I don't see comments in the chat. I sure hope I'm not having the same issue I had last time. If I am, I apologize. There was an issue last time I did a live stream where the comments weren't showing up. So if you're commenting, I'm going to apologize ahead of time. Well, I see one, so maybe they are there.
Jam Paul, Edward D. Dios just came in.
Yes. So if y'all throw some comments in there, let us know you're here. But the community of folks who were in the part of Mock Draft Monday and getting to do this, but the great part about this for me was this is how I got to learn about the prospects. If you don't know who the prospects are, especially later in the draft, that's okay. We're going to go on this journey together through Mock Draft Monday, and we are going to learn about the prospects. I still don't know who all of them are. I've been looking at it a little bit. I'm going to learn more and more about prospects. You're going to learn more about prospects. And I'll tell you, come draft time, you're going to, if you are hanging out with us every week, you are going to enjoy the draft so much more having been through this, because on day 3, you're going to be sitting there and looking at, man, Kenny McIntosh, that running back I really loved out of Georgia, just got drafted by someone else. Dang it, man. I wanted him, and you're going to know who those guys are. When the Cardinals got Marquise Hayes in the 7th round, I knew who he was. And that guy was supposed to go in the 3rd or 4th round. So I was stoked about that. And you're going to enjoy the draft more having that information. So we're going to learn together. If you feel like you don't know who the prospects are, great. That's what we're here for. So that's what Mock Draft Monday is about. So what we're going to do, we're going to talk a little bit about just some of the stuff going on in the news with the Cardinals, particularly the coaching stuff. Then I'm going to profile a player. Every week I'm going to profile one player that I just think is an interesting prospect for the Cardinals. I'm going to try to do players who are deeper down the draft board, not first-round picks, because we're all going to hear a ton about those guys. I love kind of that deeper dive. So I'm going to profile a player today, and then Troy's got a mock draft. He's going to go over his mock. I've got one. I'm going to go over it. And then after we go through ours, we're going to go through the mock drafts that were submitted by you all. We had about 8 or 10 of them, so nice number of mock drafts. And we're just going to look at them and talk through them. And when your mock draft gets put up, if you're here hanging out with us, put your comments in the chat about your thought process on it. We'll get them up there. And it'll be fun. So I'm going to say hey to some of the folks that are in here, and then we'll get into some of the news. So the Cat Dog had a comment actually earlier today. Carter, first and foremost, talking about Jalen Carter, a very popular, candidate for the number 3 pick. We got JP. I'm still torn between Anderson Jr. and Jalen Carter. I think that's where a lot of Cardinals fans are. It really feels like that's where it's at. So we got Nick L. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. We've got JT's URL. Hi, Joe. Hey, appreciate you hanging out with us. We've got Moore's Legacy, who's got a mock draft with us, 49ers or Eagles. Who do you think's going to win that one?
Niners.
I think the Eagles, but I could see it going either way.
Yeah, it's tough. Wait, it's in Philly, right?
I think so. They have the better record, don't they?
I believe you're right. Yeah. So yeah. So especially with Hurts getting a little more healthy, he didn't really look very banged up Saturday.
Yeah, right.
So either way, but I guess I'm going Niners.
I'm not going to be surprised by either outcome, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how about you? Yeah, for sure. We got Benjamin Bigford. Thanks for being here. Appreciate you. We got Jordan P. Mock draft time. That is right. We got Eduardo Brunetto. Thank you for being here. Hello, guys. You know that if there's mock draft Monday, I'm in. But this year, we're not going to select Matt Ariza. Cheers from Brazil. Yes, Eduardo was a great part of mock draft Monday last year, and he knows. We sort of adopted Matt Ariza as our kind of, your mock draft wasn't official, didn't have the official stamp of Matt Ariza wasn't drafted. And it's kind of that went bad. Maybe just a little bit.
I was going to say, like, he was the punter that got dropped, right?
He was the punter, the punt god, they called him, but there was sort of a little off the field.
He had, some very problematic cases.
So I'm just hope that there's going to probably be a few players we kind of hitch our wagon to this year. And I'm just really hoping none of them, that we're not some sort of curse, especially the guy we're going to talk about today, because I think he's going to be one of the more popular picks this year.
Let's hope more of who is the lineman that plummeted, because that photo of him with the gas mask.
Laremy Tunsil.
Laremy Tunsil, yeah. Hopefully more of that.
Right.
Something like that, more on that.
You can recover from that. Yeah. So, yeah, for sure. We got Westville here. Yo, thanks for being here. Appreciate you hanging out. We got Mono187. What's up? Thanks for hanging out with you or with us. Cruz Ispuro. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I hope I'm not messing it up. Appreciate being here, channel member. As much as I love Sean Payton, the amount that is being asked from the Saints and the salary he would want, I think, is just too much. I agree. I like Sean Payton as a coach. We've talked about that a lot in here. Let's see. We got Mikey Desert Cardinals. Thanks for hanging out with us. Hoping Frank Reich gets hired and that we trade back to acquire more picks to fill out this roster with young talent. Reich's not my first pick, but he's in the I don't mind him as a candidate. But we can talk a little bit more about that. Let's see who else we got. Paul G. Thanks for being here, Paul. Mock draft TCR time. And I think we've got everyone. I mentioned everyone once here. Yeah, and then Jordan P saying about the Matt Ariza. Funnily enough, it turns out Ryan Stonehouse was the crown jewel punter from last year. And I'll tell you, I forget who it was, but there were people in during mock draft Monday last year who were saying, listen, as much as Matt Ariza is getting all the attention, Ryan Stonehouse has actually got better numbers and might be a better punter. And I mean, listen, if nothing else, by virtue of not having some really problematic off the field stuff, he's the better punter because he's available and he's been good. So anyway, okay, let's get into just a little bit we're going to quickly talk about some of the coaching news, because there was some news. Obviously Sean Payton's the big name. We knew the Cardinals had requested and received permission to interview him, but nothing had been scheduled, and that was giving Cardinals fans some concern. And then we find out today he is scheduled to interview on Thursday in a couple days. And then additional news that he canceled or at least postponed a second interview with the Broncos. That might just be something they'll reschedule. So there's some questions about that. And then D'Amico Ryans, a candidate that I really like, probably my top name, had an interview scheduled on the day of their playoff game Sunday, but it seemed weird to me that he would interview that day. And lo and behold, he canceled 2 interviews, the Cardinals, I think, and the Colts. And now he can't interview till like he's out of the playoffs or at least I think till after the week after or till Monday, maybe, I think, or
week from today, I believe. Yeah.
A week from today. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. And so people are hoping, will he reschedule, or is, and I think there's a good chance he does. I think he's in the playoffs and probably should have never scheduled it for Sunday in the first place. So there's that news. And there might be a few other things. So if there's anything I missed, so Troy, what are your thoughts on kind of the news on the coaching front?
Yeah, I mean, the Sean Payton, it's so funny how I don't think anyone really knows what's going on with that, because, over the weekend it seemed like that coffin was, the final nail in the coffin with that was, I think he was going back for another Denver interview, and it kind of seemed like, oh, he's definitely not interested in the Cardinals gig. Some reports and rumors that were like he didn't really love that we picked a GM already, which I don't know. I think some of these people also have no idea what they're talking about, because every other team that he was supposedly, having interviews had a GM already. So that didn't make any sense to me. And it's like, where do you expect the Cardinals supposed to sit on their hands and leave the entire front office up in the air until he maybe joins the team? Like, you can't do that. So I thought we were done with that reports of what the Saints were asking for just seemed too outrageous. I mean, it was like multiple firsts. Just, and his salary is 15 to 20 million a year or something like that. Like, extremely high, like a Belichickian level salary. So I was kind of out, or I was at peace with like that probably not being an option. And lo and behold, he's back in this mix of things. So, who knows? It could be leverage, could not be. We don't know. I'm still in as long as the price isn't too high. And I think what the Saints are asking for is, I mean, basic laws of negotiation. Always shoot for more what you really want, just because something to work off of. So I don't think they're going to get what they're asking for. I'm still in. The DeMeco Ryans one it's a toss up between those two. I think. Sure, we like the way that San Francisco defense is playing with really. Other than Warner and Bosa, there's not like elite top end talent, just a lot of good players who are playing well, and that's a good unit. I mean, that Cowboys offense put up 40 on Tom Brady pretty much, and then cracked 12 the other night. There's a lot to love about that, and just all these reports you hear coming out too about him. Everyone just loves him. So, I mean, that doesn't mean much, but it gets you excited at least. Flores, I'm still okay about his prickliness with quarterbacks and maybe some other people's abrasiveness is probably a better term, is a little cause for concern for sure. And the fact he's I think we're the only team as a head coach interviewing for, which is another like weird thing. Like, if you're so great, why is no one else interviewing you in this cycle? But I don't know. There's a lot to take in. We'll see what happens. But Peyton and DeMeco Ryans are still my top two choices. Oh, and that guy we just hired from the Detroit.
Yeah.
Seems to be really well respected, well that guy. And Detroit's draft last year was killer.
Yeah.
So,
super hearing rave reviews about our new assistant GM. Yeah.
Yeah. So super high on that. So I'm kind of like, I like that hire. I like Ossenfort and I like what he's doing. I was a little bummed that Cunningham didn't turned us down because he was my top pick just because he came from the Ravens.
He was Eagles, mine too. Yeah.
I'm happy that at least we offered. I'm happy that, Bidwell's head was in the right direction. So, ship's turning in the right direction.
Yeah. So my read on the whole Peyton thing at this point, because he interviewed with Denver and it just felt like Denver was kind of the leader in the clubhouse. And then, now he's, now we have an interview schedule, and that whole postponing or rescheduling or canceling the second interview with Denver. And there's two ways I read that. There's two ways to read that. Either things are souring on the Denver situation, and now he's looking at Arizona and the other places he's interviewed, there wasn't really headway, or he's looking to use us for leverage. And either of those could be really what's going on. I actually, if I had to bet, I think it's the latter. I think he's maybe held off on that second interview. He's trying to put some pressure on them for the negotiations. He's going to get another team in the room, but we'll see. But who knows? Maybe it's a legitimate thing. So
do you put much weight into the fact that his interviews, apparently he will be in Arizona, whereas some of these other ones, I believe the Texans and I think the Carolina one, they flew to him, but he's coming to Arizona. Do you think that carries any weight about anything? Or?
Not necessarily. Real quick, Red Sea is saying either he can't pin messages or he's just getting caught up in convo. Yeah, I'll get to some of the comments. So yeah, I can get the messages. So I see the super chat. Thank you, Red Sea. We'll get to that. I don't necessarily think that necessarily. I'm not reading into that.
Some people were trying to decipher the color of tie he was wearing this weekend.
Right. That's what that's what we're going to do. So in the absence of facts, we look for any little bit we can. So DeMeco Ryans, I really think that one is probably just about the timing, and he'll reschedule, although he's interviewed with the Texans, and that does seem like a natural fit since he played there. So I don't know. And then I think JP mentioned in the chat that Brian Callahan from the Bengals they requested an interview with him. So we'll see that. So, there's coaching news.
Your man Steichen isn't up there. How bummed are you about that?
I'm not that bummed because I like him as a coach and I had reasons for wanting him. It's become clear to me that Michael Bidwell wants a different type of coach than we had in Kingsbury. And you've talked about the similarities with Steichen's offense, some similar concepts to Kingsbury. So I think, you see how many defensive coaches, only a few offensive. And I think he's going culture first. And I really do think they're trying to do the Patriots thing. And, Belichick is more of a defensive coach. He coaches both sides, but, they build the defense, the offensive line, and, and a quarterback, and they don't emphasize receivers a lot. I think they're trying to build culture, offensive line, defense, and then Kyler can make it. So I'm not surprised, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, the thing that worries about me is Steichen, though, is like that offense is like one of the best rosters. Like there's so many good players on it. Like sometimes it's I'm like, we don't have that many good players. Like, I don't know if that offense is going to work without that, And
yeah. But hopefully at the same time, we're going to hope our GM builds that, right? So
absolutely. Yeah.
But let me get caught up on the comments, and then we'll kind of get into some of the stuff we have. So that's kind of, there will be more news about coaches, obviously, but we want to touch on that a little bit. So there's a few other folks that have jumped in here. So if I've missed you, I apologize. Obviously, yes, thank you, Red Sea. Mock Draft Money single-handedly saved my Monday. Listen, it's a highlight of my week, so definitely excited about that. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for all you do to support this. Benjamin asked a question, do you live in Arizona? And I know someone answered that I live in Georgia. I was born in Mesa, Arizona. I spent a lot of my life in Arizona. My career, I work as a university professor, and those jobs, you have to go where the jobs are. So I got a job in Georgia. But I moved away from Arizona in 2008. But I've been a Cardinals fan since I moved there, and Arizona I think of as my home state. I miss it every day. But yeah, I do live in Georgia, and really part of doing TCR is a way for me to feel connected to my home team and my home state, which has really kind of been great for me. Let's see.
I think I'm the only TCR cast member that lives in Arizona.
You're the only part of our regular rotation of folks. You really are. I mean, we got Texas, now Michigan, I think, Virginia, Utah, and Arizona. So yeah, you are representing the AZ. So thank you for doing that. Raphael, how late am I? Just a few minutes. We haven't even got to the mock draft, so you're good, buddy. And I know I got your mock draft, so appreciate that. Let's see who else. Paul thinks that the whole thing with Peyton is probably for leverage, and I think it's more likely than that. Paul's mentioned Tony Dungy. I don't think he wants to coach anymore, and I wouldn't. He was a great coach, but I think he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be a coach again, and I would want to go with a different direction for me. We got Austin, who's a Mesa native. Awesome. I went to Westwood High School, so I don't know where you go or went, Austin, but yep. I was kind of the west part of Mesa. Robert Moore, I made it for the first mock draft Monday of the season. Yes, appreciate you being here. If there's anyone I missed, get a comment there. I'll say, hey, wait, we got Redbirds. Reppin' Bird Gang from Atlanta here. Also, word, I was at the Atlanta game. So next time I go up to Atlanta, next time there's a Cardinals game in Atlanta, I try to meet folks through up there. So let me know, and we'll catch base at the game. You went to Red Mountain. Okay, nice. Way out east. I used to live in Red Mountain. Okay. All right. So let's get into what we do with Mock Draft Monday. And first thing we're going to do, now we're getting into the stuff, is we're going to do a profile of a player. And I am picking a player that I think plays a position that I think it's not the position we're going to take in the first round, but to me, it's the most important position to address this draft. I think we need to address this position more than any other position, but based on positional value, you're not going to go first round, and that's center. And the player is John Michael Schmitz. He's a center, plays his college ball in Minnesota. I think he went to high school in the Chicago area. He's 23. He's actually a grad student. He's based on how eligibility stuff works. 6'4", 320. And I have here his projection as a day 2 pick. He could sneak into the back end of the first round. You never know. But I feel like he's more likely to go somewhere in the second round. Maybe he slides into the early third round, but I think you probably have to go in round 2 to get him. And, when you look at his PFF grades, They are outstanding. You look at his overall a 92.3, and so like there's two things I love. Well, more than two, but the two things I really love is one. Look how good he's been throughout all three, like at least the 3 years of showing. Like he didn't have a bad year. Like great PFF grades across the board, and he got better, right? So like you look and just everything, all in every category he grades well, right? Gave up 2 sacks at least in the 3 years they've listed here. They only show 3 years here. So like he's got so many things going for him. To me, he seems like the slam dunk safe pick. The only thing to me that keeps him from being a really good starting center is injury. And I'm not saying he has an injury history, but that's the only thing that could derail him, right? Is injury. Like to me, he's that clean of a prospect. Paul G, he drafted in the simulator. Mono mocked him. Jordan saying JMS at pick 34 is already signed, still delivered on draft day. I hope so, right? Like, this is the guy. To me, this is the player I probably want more than anyone else. I'm obviously not taking third overall, but this is the player I hope we land. And like on top of all that, like he's got a great nickname, or at least I don't know if anyone else is giving him, but I'm giving him a nickname. It's John Michael. He's our center Schmitz. So like he's got that going for him. So like to me, there's nothing not to love about John Michael Schmitz. What do you think?
I totally agree. I think the only thing that's kind of maybe not concerning, and because I know like who was with Stetson, like people were making fun of him. He's 25, like quarterback, lighting people up. So John Michael's a little bit older. He's 23. So you might be worried that maybe his room for growth isn't quite as large as maybe a younger guy. But everything else, he's just a hoss. Look at that guy. He's everything you want. And another thing is he's continuing a trend. I think hopefully if we get him, he'll continue a trend that we had like with you lost the Cliff Kingsbury meme, which I don't know if you saw that. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah, I remember that meme. Yeah, that was a fun meme.
We should still. He's not a coach, but even to every time we win, we're still playing that because the spirit of Cliff will live on in this team. And then we got hopefully he's not back, but Trace McSorley has a song, and I think John Michael Schmitz will continue that theme, continue that legacy with his own song.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that because as it turns out, I actually have a song for John Michael Schmitz that I recorded myself. So everyone, this is I mentioned this on Twitter, something fun. Here is the John Michael, he's our center Schmitz song. You're welcome.
John Michael, he's our center Schmitz. His name's on my draft too. No matter what they say, this mock is A-okay. It's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
You're welcome.
I like the vocals there. That was wonderful. That was wonderful. You could hold a tune. Thank God you didn't have me do that because.
So yes,
blood out of the earphones.
That is actually me singing. I got the karaoke track of John Jacob Jingleheimer Schmitz for a karaoke track, recorded it, added the video, threw the vocals, added the claps in, did the images of him clapping. So yeah,
for the non-North American audience, that part just went way over there.
Yeah. So I it looks like people are enjoying this. Mikey, John Michael Jingleheimer Schmidt, Mr. Mono's getting a little laughed. So what was here? Thanks for being here. He's enjoying the clap. Moore's legacy is dying. That's a good one. Thank you. Paul's laughing. Deontay Singleton, thanks for being here. Great job. Thank you. Bruh, I'm running a ton of machinery here. You can't be making me laugh that hard. Thank you. Raphael, what was saying? Thank you. Appreciate that. We need a short of that song. There will be one, right? So I'm just going to tell you, I will get that up on YouTube. I wanted to premiere it here first. And I got something else for you all. If your draft has John Michael Schmidt in it, there will be a shorter version of it that I will play.
It's got John Michael, he's our Sander Schmitz.
So if your mock draft has John Michael Schmitz on it, you will get that. Right? New intro. So Cruz Espero, thank you so much for the super chat, channel member and super chat. I appreciate your support. Who do you have us drafting at 3rd overall? Or have I missed that already? I haven't been as active recently. So, Troy, why don't you give us your thoughts on pick number 3, and then I will give my thoughts. And thank you, Cruz, for the super chat. So what do you think?
So I guess there's kind of technically three avenues that it was kind of the prevailing theories right now at 3. So it's either Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, kind of depending on whatever the Bears choose to do. Those two players are the two. Sorry, camera's over here. Those are the two elite defensive prospects. So it's kind of like pick your poison. Do you want an edge rusher or do you want a possible elite defensive tackle? So whatever you think. I'm personally more in the Jalen Carter train just because I think those guys are harder to find. And he's has a very unique kind of skill set. Maybe not unique, but like he's just a beast. You know, I don't think you can really go wrong with either.
Yeah.
I know we just drafted 2 edge rushers, but I mean, with again a guy like Will Anderson and the tape you put out, like you don't really pass on kind of that guy. And the new kind of prevailing third option that's kind of getting popularity is trading back to 4 with the Colts, who'd be trading up to get a quarterback. So effectively, you should be gaining a pick and still not losing one of those 2 guys, assuming the Colts actually pick a quarterback or they just totally screw us, which I doubt that will happen. But so yeah, so it's kind of up to you. I mean, again, the third option is reliant upon the Colts feeling frisky and wanting to get CJ Stroud or Bryce Young or Will Levis or whatever is gaining some steam too. I don't know. Who knows? I mean, Trubisky was drafted like that too. So there's been worse quarterbacks drafted.
Yeah.
I mean, and then the Niners for Trey Lance, who Trey Lance is probably getting traded this offseason too. I don't know what they're going to do with him, but yeah.
Well, yeah. We'll see. I think we're probably of a similar mind. For me, like, I think the only people I'm willing to take at pick 3, if it's me, are Will Anderson or Jalen Carter. If it's not one of the 2 guys, if they're for some reason they're both gone, which I don't think will happen, but if they're both gone, I'm trading out, right? If they're gone. My first pick is the scenario you described. If we can trade back to the Colts because they decide they want to move up and get that quarterback, and we are dangling to them that there are other teams. If you want it, you got to move up, and we can move it back to 4 and get one of those 2 guys. That's the biggest win. If both, if they're both there, my preference is Jalen Carter. I don't think you can go wrong with either. Obviously, we see in the comments from folks like, there's people for both, Will Anderson, right? And Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, trade back Jalen Carter. Will Anderson is the best choice. Will Anderson. And like, and you can, there's a number of like, conventionally Will Anderson is the pick you'd expect, right? You take, if you've got an outside edge rusher, that kind of player, the Chase Young, right? That kind of guy, that guy usually goes first. And I understand that. We've talked about this before. My preference for how I like to build the roster is kind of the interior pass rush, invest in those guys, get blue chippers there if you can. And then you can, those outside pass rushers, you can get those day 2 and day 3 guys, develop them. And if they have that interior pass rush that is disruptive, they're not double teamed and they're even better. You both are like, you can't go wrong with either of those guys. So, right.
If you have a dominant interior pass rush, you typically dominate the game. Like all the good quarterbacks fall flat against, that's Kyler's terrible against a good interior pass rush. That's his, I think a lot of those mobile quarterbacks, they say the Brady's and all that, Aaron Rodgers, they can't do well with an interior pass rush. If you have a good player, a good talisman in that position, then you're sitting pretty.
Yeah. So yeah, like I'm not going to be upset with either of them.
Mm-hmm.
I for me, it's Jalen Carter. but if they take Will Anderson and you tell me you prefer Will Anderson, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. It's just that's my preference. They're both so good, right?
Do you want a Ferrari or Lamborghini?
Right. Take your pick, right?
All right.
Yeah. So let me say hey to some folks who just jumped in here. And if I miss anyone, again, I apologize. I try to say hi to at least everyone at least once. Gary Coker's just jumped in here. Thanks for being here. Me personally, I don't want Sean Payton. People are forgetting about how he left the Saints in shambles. Then they've yet to recover. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl 14 years ago. Much rather have Ryans. I still think Peyton's a good coach. And if we could get him without giving him a first-round pick, I would. But I prefer Ryans, especially considering the compensation situation. So, that's kind of where I'm at. Okay. So let's get into some of the mock drafts. We're going to go at Troy with your mock draft first, and we're going to give you a chance to kind of explain your thought process on this. And when maybe I'll give some of my thoughts on some of your picks that I liked and tell you why you're completely wrong. No, I'm kidding.
It wouldn't be too hard to figure it out.
Right. So here is Troy's first mock of the season. Tell us about your mock, Troy.
First off, PFF, not a big fan of our boy, John. He's our center Schmitz, but PFF has been wrong many times before. So me, I don't usually do mock drafts a whole lot, especially this early, because again, it's before the combine. Yeah. These names and where they're at will dramatically change over the next 3 to 4 months, especially as you get closer to draft season and trades are announced and all that. So I didn't really try to do trades down to like the Colts or anything like that. I kind of did fast, the easy one, and just let it rip, as it were. But the idea, a lot of it, as you can kind of see, was focused on trenches mainly, just because I feel like that is where we lack as a team and that culture. For as long as I've been a Cardinals fan, again, I was born and raised here in Arizona. Like, I feel like we've never had a dominant offensive line or defensive line. There's been a few seasons or blurps here and there, but like culturally as a franchise, that's never been our identity. And it'd be nice to change, because if you can control the trenches, more times than not, you're winning the football game. So started off Will Anderson. Again, Jalen Carter wasn't there, so I chose the Lamborghini in this case. Again, elite edge rusher. Can't go wrong. Guy's a freak in nature, and it's going to be awesome. 2, our boy. Let's hit it.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I'm not. I got to get used to getting ready. All right, here we go.
John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
Obviously the center. 2020 really figured out how important a center was with Mason Cole, and just how terrible that season was going, and how they drastically that improved when we got Rodney Hudson, albeit a slowly declining Rodney Hudson, but still such a dramatic improvement. And this year we did not really have Rodney Hudson, bar 4 games, and that situation is just a clear, just a complete mess. Sorry about that. I was actually talking to Howard Balzer, who's a big Cardinals reporter. You'll see, he was at an event I was at, and he was just saying like the Cardinals just had no plan, which is kind of like the writing on the walls for Steve Keim was then. It's like, as a front office, they had no plan on that situation if Rodney was not to play, and he was coming into the season injured. They said he said when you watch him on the sidelines, dude could barely walk. So we got to get our guy in, and I know we've talked about it many a times in our offseason plans, but he probably won't start this season. I think we want a guy an experienced vet who can start. Hopefully he wins. He might win the job in the camp. If they get
Schmitz, he might be starting.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Schmitz is good. I think there's also a center from Ohio State that's really highly ranked as well.
Yeah.
Really any one of those guys, I think can't really go
Michigan
wrong.
Too. There's I think there's at this point kind of 3 guys that you're looking at.
But yeah, love that. Next, Moro Ojimo, interior defensive lineman. Again, we didn't get Jalen Carter. So pretty much like almost 1 in 3. It's going to be whoever I didn't get in 1 is going to draft in 3.
Right.
We definitely need some more D tackle, especially with JJ Watt leaving. I don't really know much. This guy was there, but I looked at his draft profile. He has really strong hands, kind of more, not experimental, but, he has a lot of room for growth. He is, good athleticism, really strong hands. Seems like he could be a good player. Keep going. Corner, obviously. Clark Phillips III. I don't want to get too much into it. He had a really good season for Utah. The key thing here, he's only 5'10", not a big guy, so maybe a slot corner. Because I think Byron is a good outside. Marco had a great year, and if we get another good guy in there, another to play slot, can't go wrong. I mean, corner depth, is just
you can never have too much.
Now. Exactly. Quick moving down, I got a guard from USC, Andrew Voorhees. Hopefully, he's a murderer like his brother Jason. Oh, that was funny because there we go. Oh, I'm doing a Jason Voorhees joke, everyone. Come on now. Yeah, exactly. There it is. Apparently, this guy's a monster. He's 6'6", big guy, super strong. And again, the only downside I read was that he's not quite as twitchy as some of his elite guards are that big. But I mean, if you're getting him in the 4th round, can't really complain. Again, interior offensive line depth is key. I'm big on Marquise Hayes and who's the other guy we drafted?
Lacita Smith.
Lucida Smith. I mean, Lucida Smith had an okay rookie year. Marquise Hayes, I think, is going to be awesome. We'll see if he comes around this year. But like Cody Ford's was not encouraging at all. So woof indeed. So again, depth can't go wrong there. Ventrell Miller, not much to say about him. Linebacker, I don't know. I feel like we need more depth. I'm tired of seeing Nick Vigils of the world on our team. And then here, so these are obviously much more developmental guys, and I think guys that kind of track well with people who are existing on a roster already, who are probably ready to move on a little bit, or good backup. Jamari Connor profiles a lot like a Buda Baker, really athletic, strong tackler, good in the run game, really fills the hole, coming deep. Not a super great coverage guy, but again, probably more like a strong safety. So he's kind of Buddha-esque, Jalen Thompson-esque in a way. Bryce Ford Wheaton is he's 6'3", big, tall, good possession wide receiver. So he would be like AJ Green / Twizzy. Oh, what's his name?
Antoine Wesley.
Antoine Wesley. Profiles them, which I think Kyler Murray needs taller wide receivers, as we have discussed at length for him to see. And then the last one is Gerard Clark, who profiles as a nose tackle, Coastal Carolina. I think we need a good, again, another developmental guy, but profiles as a 3-4 nose tackle, which we have sorely missed as, Corey Peters is never really that impactful towards the end there, and that D tackle that we both love, Rashard Lawrence,
never
space his name, never healthy enough. So in a nutshell.
Yeah, so I obviously the first pick, Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, either one is going to be a win. Obviously, we love John Michael Schmitz there. Moro Ajomo has been on a lot of my mock drafts. I like there's some good interior defensive linemen in round 3, even into round 4 that I really like. There's probably half a dozen of them that I think are intriguing, and he's one of them. So I think I like that position in round 3. Getting cornerback, with Marco Wilson starting to develop, we'll see if they bring back a Byron Murphy. We hope so, but the new GM is going to have sort of what he wants in players. And, we talked about this before. Don't be surprised if some players we thought would be back won't be back because they don't fit what Austin Fort wants. We have to prepare ourselves. So free agency is going to really tell us what they need to do in the draft.
That's a good point. I don't think about that. Right.
Yeah. So getting Voorhees, obviously I like him there, getting a lot. I like getting a linebacker and a safety on day 3 for some depth. So I think there's some good picks all around. I like it. And, I want to say hey to Desert Lightning, who just dropped in. He's saying, I'm good with drafting linemen with our first 4 to 5 picks. Sick of watching the Cardinals get abused on both sides of the line. I agree. And, and I'll tell you, like I did that whole video, about how I'd fix the Cardinals. And a lot of that was based within the context of how Cliff and, Vance Joseph do what they do. And we're going to have to see what happens with our new coach. And that's going to impact how this team's going to build it, how they're going to build the team by who they bring in terms of defensive scheme and offensive stuff. But also with Austin Fort, that whole Patriots kind of mindset, even how I'm approaching the mock drafts is shifted. Like I'm looking much more offensive line and defensive line than I would have before. In the past, I was definitely getting a center and maybe a swing tackle later. But like now, just knowing who our general manager is and how the Patriots like to build things, I'm taking a guard sometimes, on day 2. And I'm, loading up on defensive players more and not worrying as much about the offensive side of the ball. So, yeah, I like it. I think there's some nice picks there. So let me get my draft up here. Excuse me. So here's what I went with my first mock draft. Now, I will say I do multiple mock drafts just to game out different ones, and then I pick I save a bunch of them, and I pick the one that I think has some interesting picks that I want to look at, right? And I will tell you, like Jalen Carter in the mock drafts I was going in the first 2 picks a lot, first overall a lot. So he wasn't always available, but this one he was available. Obviously, then this one also.
It's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
I hope everyone's clapping along at home. I'm sorry.
Please, yeah, I really do hope so. And someone asked earlier, I will absolutely be putting that song out on as its own video, and I'll put it on Twitter also. So yeah, but like I will say, at least in PFF's mock draft, he ends up like when I take him at pick 34 or wherever they normally pick, 34. He is usually like that's a little early for their rankings. Like in terms of like he sticks around longer. So I've been doing some trade, and the Patriots love trading back, right? So Austin Fort may be up for that. So I've been trading that second round pick back like I did here and picked up, an extra 3rd round pick. And I think I threw in a 6th round pick or a 5th round pick, just kind of make the difference. Just moved back a few spots. So I've been doing that a bit, and I got John Michael Schmitz, and then I've got Zach Harrison, who's a defensive end, but he's a little bit bigger defensive end, out of Ohio State, has some really, his PFF grades really well. So I kind of, I got him. I got Rashee Rice, a receiver, there, and then I went Siva Villa, a guard, kind of a bigger guard out of TCU. And then I went back-to-back halfbacks. Kendre Miller out of TCU, who had a great season, grades out really well. He seems more like kind of that early down, well, really kind of, he looks almost like he could be a bell cow, full 3-down back, but he's more that primary ball carrier. And then Kenny McIntosh is the guy I'm picking in a lot of my drafts, like on day 3 when I'm looking for like a change of pace receiving back. He's got a lot of receptions, big part of the running game, our receiving game. And so like I'm looking at him, like we've got James Conner and we've got Keontae Ingram, who I want to see more of, but like I feel like the Patriots they really emphasize the running game. So like I'm often going 2 running backs, getting kind of a guy who's an early down back and then someone who's more of a change of pace receiving back.
I mean, they had Damian Harris and then still went Ramondre Stevenson, and those guys are beasts. Ramondre turned out to be the better of the 2, so that totally makes sense.
Absolutely. So for me, Kenny McIntosh is showing up a lot of my drafts because he goes kind of later on day 3, and he's from a good program. He's got some good stats and good grades and looks like kind of that receiving back you want. So I like him. Then DeMarco Hellams is a safety. Listen, if you're not, and my last 2 picks are out of Alabama, DJ Dale, kind of the nose tackle, interior defensive lineman. If you're going late, go with Alabama guys because they've got the pedigree, right? And they've got the physical tools, and these guys graded well. So, depth at safety, more depth at interior defensive line. So that's kind of how I went. But you see, lot on the line, couple running backs. You can see what we're doing here, right? We're building a defense and we're building a running game, and getting a little bit of receiver there. Thoughts or feedback on my mock?
I guess I noticed no corners because I do feel like that will be a point because what if he doesn't bring Byron back, or is Antonio Hamilton coming back? We don't know.
Yeah.
I know and this might be a product of just how dire our season was, that he looked better than he probably really was, but like when Corey Clement came in, like he was a practice squad guy, and he looked pretty good. Like I feel like there's for running backs and stuff. Why I didn't really draft one because I feel like we can just get guys for dirt cheap off other teams just because that position's so kind of stacked ish. I don't know if that's the right word, but
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of avoided it. But no, yeah, I mean, I liked it. I mean, similar kind of thing, kind of build the trenches, and then take stabs at still kind of skill guys in the end because those guys hit. I mean, the Chiefs running back Pacheco, the 7th round dude, is tearing it up. Like,
yeah. And I get cornerbacks on a lot of my mock drafts, so this was one that didn't have it. I think going cornerback is definitely, and I will tell you, in scenarios where Carter and Anderson are gone and I have to trade back, I often consider taking a quarterback. In the first round, or if not, I often take one, in second or third round. I didn't on this one. So I definitely agree that cornerback is a position to look at, just in here. So yeah, let me say hey to some of the folks who just popped in, and then we'll get to some of the other mock drafts. Thank you, AZ Os, for being here. Keontae Ingram is not good. Probably won't make the team, and Connor will be cut out this year. Plenty of running back depth in this class to pick up a couple. I don't agree with your assessment of these two. I think Keontae Ingram, he struggled, but that offensive line was horrific, and I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be a guy you want in that rotation. I don't think Connor's going to be cut after this year. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible. If the new regime, for whatever reason, doesn't want to go with him and they want to cut him for cap money, that's possible. But he played really, he played hard, ran hard behind a really bad offensive line. I think they like him. So
there's no running backs coach throughout the year.
Yeah, right. Without really the running backs coach got fired because of some issues off the field they've had to deal with, So I'm more bullish on our running backs, but I appreciate being here, hanging out with us. Let's see if there's a few other people. Simon, she's just coming. Thanks for being here, a channel member, great friend of the channel. Some people are saying Jalen Carter has character, ego, effort issues. I wonder if Austin Fort would pass on him with his stance on attitude. So I've heard some people talk about that. I don't know enough to know if it's legit, but I could see that happening. I mean, Austin Fort is going to, and that might be, as much as I like Jalen Carter, if Will Anderson is cleaner as a prospect, so to speak, in terms of the intangibles and the character stuff, like when you're talking about third overall, you want to really mitigate risk. So I could see that maybe they go Anderson if he's available, or maybe they trade out and they don't go after Carter if Austin Fort is concerned about that. So I don't know if there's anything to those, but if there are those concerns, I could see that being an issue. So yeah,
I'll be curious if we go tackle at all, and because Josh Jones showed some good tape, at the end of last season playing left tackle. I wonder if Austin Fort's in his head at all, just to maybe trade Hump, get anything we can, and just, rebuild that way. I mean, I think Hump's good. I mean, I don't think his contract's ridiculous. It's about in par with a good left tackle is, and Hump has been playing at a good level, I think, for the most part. So, but I'd be fascinated if we trade one of them, or just go in on a full rebuild. I mean, just depends if you think Austin Fort actually thinks it's a retooling or a rebuild.
Yeah. I mean, no, that makes sense. I mean, I floated that on Twitter that hey, if they're going to trade Hopkins and they've got these two left tackles, do they go with the younger one and trade Hump, or do they trade Josh Jones, to a team and then, I mean, and I don't want to spend too much time on that, but in my opinion, I think it would be a shame and a mistake if Josh Jones goes back to being a backup swing tackle because if he can't play right tackle, and he spends his rookie contract only being a starter for half a season at tackle and part of a season at guard out of position, and then he goes somewhere else, becomes a starting left tackle, and we get nothing. And he might not. I don't know if maybe we'd get a compensatory pick.
Sounds like a familiar situation that we've had before.
Yeah, with
a certain edge rusher,
right? So I just want to find a way to figure out how to keep Josh Jones and take advantage of the fact that we hit on a third round pick for a left tackle.
You have to imagine he could make the jump to the right. I mean, I've heard that some linemen say that it is a huge jump. It's not as easy as we think it is, but. You really hope so.
That'd be if he can. So Jose Sisioma, thank you for being here. Monty isn't drafting running back. He'll wait for free agency until undrafted players. If he wants a running back, no use wasting a pick on a running back. I will say, though, the Patriots draft running backs. They take them round 3 and later, but they draft running backs. Now, listen, I know it's no guarantee he's going to do things exactly the way the Patriots do. He said he has some ideas of his own. So maybe he goes away from that. But until we see what he does, the default for me position is assume he's going to do things like the Patriots until he shows his hand of where he's going to be different. So I think he could. We'll see, though, right? So, yeah. Let me see if there's anyone else who just got in here. Again, I want to say hey to everyone at least once. Jason Kroll, thanks for being here. Hi, Joe. What's up, bud? Got in late. Well, we appreciate that you made it. Thank you. Matthew Druid says, I don't think we need a cornerback unless Byron leaves. I'm a little torn on that. To me, the question is, how confident are you in Marco Wilson's development? I did a video about that I'm optimistic about from what we've seen. If we have Byron and Marco really is becoming what he looks like he was, especially in the second half of the season, then maybe we don't. But I still probably would like to take one. A cornerback. I know, and a lot of people would probably agree with that. But
because Ham will be a free agent, Antonio Hamilton, this year, right?
Yeah, so they'll need to bring him back.
We don't even have another outside corner technically. Technically,
Christian
Matthews. Technically, it's just but I don't think he showed enough. Yeah. Technically, it's just Marco because Byron Murphy might not even be a player for us. Who knows?
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see. So real quick, I want to say hey to a few other folks that just jumped in. Who are GW Weil, a channel member and a great supporter. Hey to all, thank you for being here. Gary, thank you for the reminder. Everyone, hit the like and subscribe button. Please be sure, especially the like button really helps. That engagement helps people get pushed out. Grimdark, thank you for this comment. Joe, the channel came up in conversation at work. Guys, recognize the channel name and said you had some good takes. Wow, that I appreciate that. Thank you. I love doing this. It's a labor of love. It's been a joy to be able to do this and get to know all of y'all and stuff. And it's amazing to me that it's become even what it has. And so thank you. That means a lot to me to hear that. So, okay.
Come for the good takes, stay for the Jingleheimer Schmidt video. See there?
Yes. He was surprised I didn't live in there. Yeah, listen, I wish I could. Career-wise, I can't, but I miss Arizona. All right, we're almost an hour, and we haven't even got to. So we're going to get to folks' mock drafts. We're going to be going for a while because we want to get everyone's mock draft on here. But now we get into the mock drafts that were submitted by you all, and we're going to go through them. The first one was by Brian Darko. Brian went with Jalen Carter, the first round, number 3. A cornerback, Emmanuel Forbes, out of Mississippi State at pick 34. Zach Harrison, a guy that I took at edge. And then he's got Luke Whippler, who's the other center, the one at Ohio State, who's, probably a lot of people think he's one of the better centers as well. But, no John Michael Schmitz, but, it's all right. Blake Freeland, an offensive tackle. Ivan Pace Jr., a linebacker out of Cincinnati. Cameron Peoples, a running back out of Appalachian State. And Charlie Jones, a wide receiver, out of Purdue. There's a lot of players on here that I haven't really learned much about yet. I haven't really drafted them. Like I said earlier, we're learning about this. Mono's saying Emmanuel Forbes hits like a truck. I like that dude. So that's good to know. So I like, obviously we talked about Carter. I like that. Forbes, there's other cornerbacks that are going around there that I probably know more about and like better, but I need to, again, after I learn about him, maybe I'll like him more. I like Zach Harrison. I like going center, even though it's not our guy. Any thoughts, anything that jumps out to you on this one?
Nope. So I don't know a lot about those guys. Offensive tackle. Like to see that. No, he's big on the Ohio State. Ohio State looked pretty good this year. Can't go wrong there. I think we're seeing a very common theme here of heavy investment in the trenches. So it's not just us believing that. The fan base at large is screaming
yes
for as Johnny Benner would say, ass kickers in the trenches.
Yes. I like the positions here. I think this is a good draft. And even though he's not John Michael Schmitz, I like Luke Whippler as so that's it. So listen, as long as you're getting a center somewhere around there and he's one of the top centers, I'm good with that. So I like it. Mr. Mono's saying Daniel Jeremiah has him as cornerback 1, I believe. So, okay. So I need to read more about Emmanuel Forbes. And that's the great thing again about this. We learn about some of these prospects, right? Someone come up with a Luke Whippler theme so we can draft them both, right? Yeah. Jason Crow with the super chat. Thank you so much. What could we get for number 3 pick if we trade down? So it depends on how far we go back, and it depends on, obviously if you're trading back, it's probably because that person wants a quarterback. There are trade charts that give you, kind of tell you, but I'm just going to kind of give a kind of general kind of, I think let's say if you trade back to somewhere around 8 or 9, if there's typically what you'd expect to get from that is obviously you're giving them 3, you're getting 8 or 9. You're probably getting their second round pick and maybe a third round pick or a future first round pick and a pick on day 2, something like that. But if there's the quarterback premium, like, if it's, like they're really, and you're really kind of sticking it to them, which you should, if they want that quarterback, maybe you get next year's 1 and a 2 and a 3 this year, plus that you can really get a lot if you really push it. But I think the conventional value, something like you get that number 8 or 9 pick, and then maybe a second round pick, and then another pick later, roughly.
We just got to bank on Irsay just really losing his mind.
Yeah, someone commented
having a quarterback.
Someone commented earlier him going to the bathroom and like, yeah, who knows what's going on there, but like, yeah. That dude is, yeah. So right. So, but yeah, that's a good question. So yeah, Brian, I like this draft. I'm learning about the players, but I think you hit the right positions that we talk about need. So I think it's good. We got to get through these because I don't want to be here for 3 hours. So let's get on to the next one. Red Sea, Corey, guy who lives, breathes, eats, and drinks the draft. He's starting looking at the draft. He's like when the draft's over, he's already looking at next year's draft. All right. So he traded back, right, with the Falcons, got a future first. He got their 8th, and he got a 2nd and a 5th, right? Kind of like what I was talking about, right? And then he got Myles Murphy, an edge rusher who's a lot of people consider to maybe be the second best edge rusher, perhaps. So that's and I tell you, when I trade back, I've got some mocks where I trade back and I take Myles Murphy. So an edge out of Clemson. Then he's got Darnell Wright, a tackle out of Tennessee in the second round. And then, of course,
it's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
He's got the
fire.
John Michael Schmitz, and he traded back to the same pick I did, right? Or he used the same pick 44 that I did. Then he's got a defensive interior, Keanu Benton. I like that. He's a guy I've taken. Jalen Jones. This is interesting. He's got him in the 3rd round. This, PFF, and some people don't like PFF. I still like them. They're not perfect, but whatever. Their rankings, they've changed them. But Jalen Jones was a 1st round pick in their initial big board rankings, and they've adjusted it as time has gone on, and as we've gone through the college season. And Jalen Jones was a guy who people thought would be a 1st round. Now he's going on late day 2 here. So getting a cornerback there, I like the value. Then he's got safety Christopher Smith out of Georgia. I don't know much about him yet, but getting a safety a player out of Georgia for depth, I like that. Ivan Pace Jr., a linebacker out of Cincinnati, was on the previous draft. Kenny McIntosh, the guy I talked about. Receiver Ronnie Bell, Michigan. Cornerback Cameron Mitchell. Then kicker Jake Moody. So you got a kicker. I know people are saying you need a kicker. So so I like Myles Murphy. I like getting, like, I'm assuming Darnell Wright is going to be a right tackle in this situation. And obviously Schmitz. Yeah, I like it. Getting a couple cornerbacks to develop, the running back. Anything you want to point out or that's you?
Yeah, can we highlight Jordan P's comment about Myles Murphy too raw? He needs huge development, because this is giving me flashbacks of the last time we picked at number 8 and picked a Clemson guy who was raw and needs a huge development. Oh God, please no. Don't commit the sins of the past.
Yeah, here's the tough part. Edge rushers, most of them coming out are raw. If they aren't, they're going in the top 10, they're going the top 10,
Mhm.
like, you know, or even top 5. If you've got a guy who has the tools and isn't raw, they're going in the top 5. If they're going outside of the top 10 or so, or even outside the top 5, they're usually going to be a little bit raw, or they're going to be tools with lower upside. Those guys actually usually go more like day 2. You know, Marcus Golden was a guy who was like, was good, but like didn't have the great athleticism, right? So, and I will say that is part of the reason I like taking edge rushers on day 2 and 3 and developing them. You find guys that are raw. They may not have the same upside, but if you're going to have to spend a couple seasons developing an edge rusher before they can really contribute, I'd rather do that pipeline thing later.
Mhm.
If I'm taking an edge rusher early, they better be able to be coming in and being like, you know, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa. So that's a fair point. I'm still learning about these prospects. He seems like he's the next best guy. So so I've taken him, but again, philosophically, I like taking those edge rushers later, partly for that reason. So
1,000%.
yeah.
Other than that, I don't really have much. I don't know a lot of these names, to be frank, but
Yeah.
excited to learn more about them.
Yeah, for sure. Let me say hey to a couple folks that's just jumped in here. We got Grandizer, great supporter of the channel. Thank you so much for being here. He does a great job, holding down the chat. Appreciate you, Grandizer. We've got Keith. Thanks for being here. Good show night. Appreciate that. Thanks for hanging out with us. Paul, thank you for saying great show. Appreciate that for sure. I know we're having fun. Mock Draft Monday. That's my favorite thing to do every year. So, Corey, Red Sea. I like the draft. Good job, buddy. Next up, Grimdark, who I know is hanging out with us. He's got a trade recap over here. He did multiple trades. We won't spend too much time on that, but he went Will Anderson at number 3. Then he went Luke Van Ness, defensive lineman at 50. Matthew Bergeron, an offensive tackle at 66. Jalen Jones, cornerback we just talked about from Texas A&M at 82. Luke Whippler, another center. If your draft doesn't have a center, that's probably the one thing I'm going to be like, right? But he's got a center. Even if it's not John Michael Schmidt, it's a center. So I like it. Byron Young, Alabama defensive line. Jacorian Bennett, cornerback out of Maryland. TJ Best, offensive line, Oregon. Keltrell Clark, cornerback out of Louisville. Anthony Johnson, cornerback out of Virginia. And then wrapping up with Cameron Peoples, running back out of Appalachian State. A lot of these players later I haven't really learned much about yet. But again, I like it. Cornerback, offensive line, defensive line, defense, cornerback, getting a running back in there, offensive line. We're hitting all the notes here, and you got a center, right? I think it's good. What do you think?
No, yeah. I mean, continuing the trends of, trenches, center, and, sprinkling of some skill players. But yeah, it's funny seeing like Cameron Peoples come up again and other names that I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot. Yeah, he was very trade heavy. He was very active in that.
He really did. But the Patriots do that, so we might be seeing that.
Absolutely.
Dakota Goddard is just jumping in the chat. Sorry, a little late. Appreciate you being here. Thank you for hanging out. Grimdark, he says, I apologize for my draft. Guess not bad for my first mock ever. No, not bad at all. Appreciate it. No, I think you did a good job, especially I like the Jalen Jones pick there. I like Whippler. I like the positions. No, I think you did a good job. Jordan P saying, interesting. Van Ness is basically an edge rusher, so 2 edge rushers I think is a bit too much. Yeah, I think at most we probably need to take 1 edge rusher because we've got so many young guys. But if when you go later, when you get this many picks, we'll see, right? So, yeah. Keith Davis, but we're all the 5'3" guys, right? That's the old regime, hopefully, right? Yeah. Next up, we have Anthony Kennedy, who I think was in here earlier. So I think he's in here. So he has traded back with the Washington Commanders, and he's gone receiver. Jackson Smith and Jiba. I didn't get that right. Jackson Smith and Jiba. I apologize to Jackson for totally butchering. And this is him. This is me. All right. Yeah, I thought that was you.
It's mono.
He tried to get weird. And let me start by saying this. I appreciate trying, like you're going to see over the course of this, I'm going to mix it up some too, right? Because if it's all the same mocks, I like seeing how it looks when we go different things. So like, Nijigba, Nijigba. Nijigba. Jackson Smith, Nijigba. Thank you. So he likes him. You know, he's like with the assumption that we're trading. Listen, if we trade DeAndre Hopkins, I think we could go. Yeah, Jose's like, huh? I'm trying to pronounce the receiver's last name, and then AZ Os gave me a little phonetic. So thank you. That's what that was about. If you just tuned into that was like, what it kind of weird? What's going on? What kind of rituals here? But yeah. No, so listen. If they trade Hopkins, I think we're going receiver maybe on day 2. It's not a great receiver class, so maybe we go for someone who's a little more kind of a deep, kind of dive sort of thing. But we got a receiver, then we got Will McDonald, an edge rusher on day 2. Then of course
it's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
It's that's never gonna get old, right?
Never.
John Michael Schmitz because right. Clark Phillips, quarterback. I think you had a little bit of Andrew Voorhees. You had. Halfback Von Akane, I think. Hope I'm not getting it wrong. Out of Texas A&M. DJ Turner, Michigan, a cornerback. We've got Kenny McIntosh, the guy I talked about earlier. We've got McClendon Curtis, a tackle out of Chattanooga. Cameron Latu, a tight end out of Alabama, and then quarterback Max Duggan. So going kind of maybe trying to do the Brock Purdy thing, and then he's got a trade
spiciness that trade.
Ooh, he traded for defensive interior
Christian Barmore for
interesting in a pick. So that he really did. Anthony really did mix it up, right? Anything after round 5 was a flyer, right? And we didn't get a first with Nukes. We got Barmore. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Listen, I like, and then he's saying McDonald is a raw edge, but athletic upside. These are kind of his picks. He's kind of going through them. Okay. So, I think there's some, I like what you did. I appreciate you mixing it up. If I'm going receiver, the guy I like is Addison. And I know, let's see, who was it? It was Jordan on Twitter was comparing Addison,
Calvin Ridley,
Ridley, and I also said I think he also reminds me a little bit of Chris Olave, that receiver who's not huge, is more a really good route runner, and I like that kind of receiver. They come in and they're good. And last year I was like Chris Olave showed up on a lot of my mock drafts. I just felt like he was the guy who's going to be able to step in and be an NFL receiver right away. And he did, right? He was
incredible.
And so Addison seems like that guy, but it sounds like Jackson Smith Njigba is also kind of has some traits. So, yeah, I like it. I like the position. So
I like that Smith Njigba because Ohio State, obviously that's very talented. I mean, look at Garrett Wilson and Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, they've been killing it, and I think he's better than them. So,
that's what someone was saying.
Ohio State, I think that's what he was saying. So I kind of love that. He's power. I think he's more of a power slot, which I know we have the Glass Man himself in there. So with Rondale Moore. So maybe having a more reliable guy at that might help, but don't hate it. Don't hate it at all.
Ben Court just dropped in. How's the quarterback class this year? Now, I admit I haven't looked at it closely because we're not, quarterback's not what we're looking at. It looks, better than last year. And it seems like there's kind of 3 names at the top that are probably all going to be first round picks. So it seems, there's some, so I think it seems like it's a decent class, maybe not as good, some of the others we've looked at in recent years, but it seems like it's a decent class. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Other than the top 2, CJ Stroud and Bryce Young, I think, and Will Levis is coming up a bit on that. I haven't really heard, it's not as deep quite as probably as years past, but also just by the way of contemporary, kind of sports media, I'm sure they'll drum up some other names and make you think they're just as good as every other prospect ever.
Right. So, and Paul's saying maybe we should look at quarterback. I don't mind quarterback on day 3, but I'd prefer to go with a veteran. At this point, especially considering the Patriots connection now, I really hope they bring in Jacoby Brissett to be that guy who's gonna kind of fill in until Kyler and be a good backup, but we'll see. Robert's saying his 3-year-old son is cracking up every time I play the John Michael Schmidt song. Well, don't worry, Robert. It's going to be played some more, and it will be on my channel. So, Fish, thanks for being here. What's up, man? Do you remember? I'm not sure if I do. I apologize if I don't, but thanks for hanging out with us. So yeah, okay. So let's get to the next. But yeah, Anthony, good mock. I like it, and I like what you did to mix it up. Now we have Moore's Legacy, who's been hanging out with us in the chat today, who was a big part of Mock Draft Monday last year as well. Starts out with Will Anderson. We're going to see a lot of Will Anderson, I think, in that number 3 pick. Then he went tackle Matthew Bergeron out of Syracuse in round 3. So looks like there was a trade. Oh my goodness.
This is actually timely. Did you see the photo of Stefan Diggs apparently working out in a Cardinals t-shirt?
I didn't see that.
Yeah, it was. I don't know how old the photo was, but everyone was saying it was real, and you can't. It's not confirmed because it's a little blurry, but it looks pretty clear to be an Arizona Cardinals t-shirt. So I don't know what that connection would be, but
I don't think anything is happening with that, but who knows?
No, I know. I just think it's very funny
Yeah.
that popping up today when I saw it.
So that might be why. So Moore's got a saucy trade. Hopkins for Diggs and some picks. Woo! That's interesting. So then we got the quarterback Clark Phillips that you had. We've got Andrew Voorhees, who you also had. Jalen Jones. I like that pick. Then and Jalen, Cedric Van Pran, and Jordan's mentioning, and about last week Cedric Van Pran. It was confirmed that he is going to go back and play for Georgia. So he's not going to actually be available, unfortunately. A good center prospect. We've got receiver Charlie Jones out of Purdue. I think maybe a lot of Cardinals fans don't want any more Purdue receivers unless they don't have an injury history. Kenny McIntosh, a guy I like. Tight end Cameron Latu late in the draft, and then Jaron Hall, quarterback out of BYU. Obviously, it's the spicy trade is fun and interesting. Not we're not gonna trade for Diggs, I don't think, but we might trade Hopkins away for picks. But yeah, I like a lot of the picks. I really like getting Jalen Jones there on day 2 or 3. I don't mind going tight end late if you're going for a tight end for some depth, because we don't know how long Zach Ertz is going to play. I like Max Williams, but he's coming back from an injury. So I don't mind but I'm not going to go early, right, for one. And again, I don't mind going quarterback late, Brock Purdy. I think a lot of teams are going to be doing that with what we saw Brock Purdy. So what are your thoughts? What are your thoughts on this mock?
Again, I love the Stefan Diggs trade. Just as for the timeliness, I can't see a world in which the Bills would do that, because I feel like Stefan Diggs is a slightly probably better version than D-Hop in terms of years left and physicality, I think. But love it. Again, I like seeing these familiar names: Clark Phillips, Andrew Voorhees, Jalen. I'm gonna look up that Jalen Jones again. I've seen him a lot. I want to get more familiar with his game, as it were. But yeah, tackle again in the 3rd round is interesting.
Yeah,
interesting stuff. I'll be curious to see if we trade a proven guy for for another player, like a player for player thing.
Yeah,
I think it's more like it'd be for draft capital, but
I think it's much more like it's gonna be draft capital. I just think that's what we're gonna see with this new regime, and I like that. I like building that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're gonna add some vets through free agency, but they're not gonna be big names. But yeah, Brian just jumped in. Hey, sorry, I'm late to the party. Kid had a meltdown. I can relate. My kids do that. I think we already did your mock draft, Brian. So you have to kind of rewatch to get that. But yes. Appreciate you being here with us. All right, Robert Moore, who I know is in the chat. We got yours, Robert. Robert has Jalen Carter at number 3 overall. Cooper Beebe, who someone mentioned earlier in the chat, might have been Jordan P, that he, I guess, is going back. So but there's other guards you could take there. So maybe you go Steve Avila or someone, so, the position is as important to look at, right, as the player. But, so going guard there, he traded Hopkins to the Patriots for a second round and a third round pick, went with a cornerback, Garrett Williams out of Syracuse, then did another trade, looks like trading back to get some additional picks. And then he got Jalen Hyatt, receiver out of Tennessee, a guy I end up taking a lot in my mock drafts. I don't know a ton about him, but I like the value going to receiver, from, who's been productive, on day 2 there. Luke Whippler, we got a center. We got Andrew Voorhees, another guard. Devin Ashane, then Joe Tippmann, another center. Wow, really loading up on the offensive line. Jonah Tavai, a defensive interior, then Jake Moody, a kicker. So a lot of trading around and back, really loading up on that offensive line, maybe even a little redundant with the centers, unless one of them you think is going to play guard. But boy, really doing that, and then getting the defensive interior, getting a quarterback. I mean, I like some of these moves. For me, maybe I don't think I'd be going 2 centers and 2 guards. I think I'm doing 1 center, 1 guard, 1 tackle at the most, but that's me. But I like a lot of the players, a lot of the picks here. Robert, and obviously if you're in the chat, give some of your thoughts here. What are your thoughts, Troy?
Sorry. Yeah, I think a little overkill in some of the line stuff. That just, that's a lot. I feel like we have to trade away or cut our current players as it is, which wouldn't that be incredibly smart. Jalen Hyatt, I know Tennessee was insane this year. Again, forgive me, I'm not super dialed into the college football. If ASU isn't good, my interest usually wanes. And guess what? They were not good. But hey,
right,
we got to love that new head coach coming in. So I look at more Jalen Hyatt because, I'm not against some more wide receiver talent on the team. I know we throw picks at it all the time, but if Hop's leaving or, whatever, I don't. Yeah. Hollywood Brown, I go in and out on Hollywood Brown. I understand why now the Ravens traded him away because he's kind of a frustrating player at times. But yeah, I'd like to see it.
Mr. Romano saying Jalen Hyatt was this year's Blitnikoff winner. And then Jordan P said Hyatt was insanely productive last year. Only issue is he's 180-pound slot that didn't face press and coverage. Seems like a good receiver. Yeah. And, I don't know how they're going to build the team, but they might go. I mean, if they're going after the Patriots, really attack the slot, but that's also might be part of their scheme in their offense. I don't know if our coach is going to do that way. So we'll see. Robert Moore saying first draft of the season, LO wanted to make the Lions a focal point, and mission accomplished, sir. Mission accomplished. Absolutely. But your 3-year-old, you need to explain to your 3-year-old why you did not draft John Michael Schmitz. I don't know your child's name, but you need to ask your dad, why didn't you draft him, Daddy? Because I could have heard the John Michael Schmitz song one more time. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do, Robert, because I like you. Even though you didn't draft him because you're 3-year-old and I'm a dad, so I'm sympathetic. I'm going to play the whole song one more time here for your 3-year-old. Ready? Here we go.
John Michael, he's our center Schmitz. His name's on my draft too. No matter what they say, this mock is A-okay. It's got John Michael, he's our center Schmitz.
You are welcome, Robert, and tell your child, your 3-year-old, that they are welcome too. All right, so good draft in terms of the positions. Just again, maybe a little too heavy on guard center, but I like some of the players. So yeah. All right. So next one we have is Judai, who that's the name in Discord. I believe he was here before in the chat. So if you're here, say hey. He just did the first 2 days, because he's still kind of learning. But your son Tristan is cracking up. You are welcome. Tell Tristan you're welcome. I hope you enjoyed that, buddy. Raphael, he's here. Thank you. Okay, there you go. Raphael's here. Okay. Could we do Whip It Devo for Whippler? Oh,
Whippler good.
I'll have to think about that. We'll see. You give me an idea. But he traded back, right? Got an extra pick, went Peter Skoronski, who's a popular pick for a lot of people. He's a tackle, but a lot of people think you might move him into guard. For me, I don't want to go. I like him as a prospect and as a player. I think he's going to be really good. I'm not taking it. To me, I'm not taking an offensive lineman that early unless you need a tackle and he is a tackle. And for me, I don't feel like we need a left tackle right now. We need a right tackle, or we need to make one of our left tackles a right tackle. But if you're drafting a right tackle, you get them later. So to me, it's more the positional value with Skoronski. Why? That's the only reason. I like him as a prospect. I like him as a player. I'm just, if I'm there and that's the best player on my board, I'm trading back again for me. But it's not because it's not a good player. It's just, that this is, taking the best player available when it's a bad fit is what Steve Keim did, right? And if you look at what the Patriots do, who draft well, is they trade back a lot, right? So for me, but good player, I'm just not taking a tackle or even if you're taking him, you're moving him to guard, but I'm not doing that early if it's me. That's just my take. But Christian Gonzalez, love it. A lot of people think he's the best cornerback in the draft, right? He's certainly in that conversation, so I love it. And Paul's saying better than Kelee Ringo. Ringo was thought to be the best cornerback, but late in the college season, he started kind of getting exposed a little bit, and he slid up quite a bit to be.
Yeah, I remember one of our way earlier shows. I said we should draft him number 1 overall, and Jordan was saying I don't really like him. And then I think just yesterday I saw a tweet saying a lot of the mock drafts from a lot of seasoned NFL professionals and stuff don't even have him in the first 2 to 3 rounds, really.
Yeah.
Kelee Ringo. So
I
was wrong, and Jordan Pugh was right on that one.
It seemed like on PFF's rankings, the top 2 are Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois, and then Christian Gonzalez. And Witherspoon looks his PFF grades 92.0 PFF grade, gave up no touchdowns. It's just that's the guy I would probably go with, this Witherspoon. He just looks like it might be that dude. But I like Gonzalez a lot. Kalijah Cansey, I take him in a lot. He's kind of a little bit of a smaller defensive interior lineman who can get pass rush. So I like him. And then Kelee Ringo in round 2, I don't mind it, right? I'll take him in round somewhere on day 2. So,
and Keely's defense, he's going against SEC caliber. He might have a harder, guys to play against, but
absolutely. So I like all the players on this draft. Again, my only kind of, for me, for how I do things, I wouldn't take Skoronski there, and it's not because I don't like him, but that's about value-based drafting, not about the player. But I like it. Yeah, I think there's some, and again, especially Christian Gonzalez, Kalijah Cansey, really like that. So good job. We've got Facu Morrissey. I think it's Facundo. Yeah. Hey, we got 3-year-olds watching. Watch your mouth, Joe. Facu Morrissey. Say that. Be very careful how I say that. No, he's from Argentina. I hope I get that right. Really, he's part of our Discord. He interacts. He's very active on Twitter. Really appreciate you. I think it's your full name is Facundo, if I'm not mistaken. I think. Correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I don't want to get it wrong. Really appreciate. Let me just take a second to say, I absolutely love hearing from Cardinals fans who are from all over the globe. It brings me happiness to see that there are people who have taken interest in this team I love, who are from Germany and France and England and Argentina and Brazil. So I can just as sincerely as I can say, Mr. Morrissey and everyone else that is a Cardinals fan from across the globe, you are welcome in our community, and I am so glad that you are part of our fan community. And I mean that as sincerely as possible. I just love that. And I know a lot of the folks love your subscribers. I get comments, and they really appreciate the way I explain things because they're learning the game. A lot of the fans from around the globe. And I am so glad that I get to be small part of helping you learn the game. So I just want to, there's my little, but we'll just want you to know, I really appreciate you all.
It's extra commendable because they choose to have this pain. Some of us, we don't get to choose it. We're born into it.
It's like Bane from, right? You chose this pain. I was born into this. Yeah. No, the fact that you would choose to be a suffering Cardinals fan with us who were born into it, really appreciate that, right? Jose saying, I have a Cardinals fan from Mexico and Australia in my league. Best part of it, to be honest, 100%. So absolutely, hands down, appreciate our I like to call us the folks who are not in Arizona, the Cardinals diaspora, right? The kind of the spread out fandom. So we've got Jalen Carter, love it. Darnell Wright, a tackle that I think Corey's Red Sea had as well, if I'm not mistaken. Luke Whippler, we've got a center. If you got a center in your draft, you're doing well. Clark Phillips, you had Voorhees, a couple guys you had. Ali Gale, an edge rusher from LSU on day 3. Kenny McIntosh, the guy I like. Cameron Young, defensive interior out of Mississippi State. And then going with receiver Antoine Green late. I like it a lot. I think you hit on all the positions we need to look at. You got the defensive interior. You hit the center. Got a cornerback in there. Got an edge. Got some guards. A running back. And I like taking receivers on day 3. They may just be depth, but I like those guys, getting the guy in there and developing them. So I really like this. What are your thoughts on this draft?
Yeah, I like it a lot. Again, hitting the same names. I would like to see maybe a little more premium. Well, maybe not a little more premium on the edge. I don't know. Depends, I guess, your philosophy on edge defenders. If you think we need more depth or, premium picks at it. But yeah, other than that, again, a lot of same names I like. I think the Luke Whippler guy. Oh, PFF did not like where you drafted him.
They don't like centers that early.
Yeah. Well, PFF. It's funny because I think they have centers like as our team needs, but apparently they still don't like it. Whatever.
They look at where you draft them. They want you to take them in round 4, 5, or 6. So I will say, I know there's a lot of people hate on PFF. They're how they grade the mock drafts. I don't even care about that. But I think the functionality of their mock drafts, I like the way it kind of flows. But yeah. So
absolutely, but no, I think it's great. We're seeing a lot of familiar names, which is fun.
Yeah, Paul G, nice draft up now. So Paul's a longtime Cardinals fan. I met Paul in Florida at the Jacksonville game last season. Really good dude, and he knows his Cardinals stuff. He's been a fan for a long, long time, and he likes this draft. Jordan P saying Darnell Wright is the best right tackle in the draft. There's so few good right tackles this year, so so I like you get yourself a right tackle there. So I like it, so yeah. We got Ben saying, I'm not quite that far, but I live in Canada. Appreciate you being part of our Cardinals fan community in Canada. So absolutely. So yeah, I think this is a good draft. I think you did a really good job. So I appreciate you being part of our community, Facundo. I hope I got the right. Please do correct me. I want to get your name right. We have Rashad Paines. Rashad, who I met at the, he's been on the channel before, and I met him at the Falcons game. He lives up in Atlanta. And he wrote in a correction.
It's good to say. I love his Photoshop.
Yeah, I love that. He went with Jalen Hyatt, but he changed out for a different receiver, Boot. I don't know. I'm looking for him on PFF right now to see if I can or was it a different position? Did he just go a different position? So
probably a different position.
Yeah, I don't think he's not showing.
PFF did not like that pick.
Yeah, so he's like, I got an F. My professor let me submit it, right?
Yeah.
This Boot. I don't know who that is, and again, I admitted I'm learning. So, if someone in the chat knows who Rashad has added there in place, please let us know. But he went Will Anderson early, right? So we like that pick. That's good. Originally he went. Jalen Hyatt probably a little early there. Okay, an LSU receiver. Oh, thank you, Brandon. Thank you for that. Yep. Well, Rashad went to LSU and is an LSU fan. In fact, that's how Rashad came to be a Cardinals fan, through the Patrick Peterson connection. So it makes sense that you would take an LSU receiver there, right?
Awkward.
Okay. Yeah.
Pet peeve.
So yeah, right. Matthew saying a receiver that was mocked really high before the year, but had a bad year. So okay, that's interesting. Real quick, Agent 47. What I miss a lot. But hopefully you can. Kayshawn Boot, LSU. Thank you, appreciate that. Again, I'm still learning about this draft class, right? So he went there. Then he went Cooper Beebe, who's went back. So there's another player that probably needs to be, moved back or needs to be, not on the draft. Then he went Luke Whippler, Henry 2020, from Alabama, linebacker in round 3. Byron Young, defensive interior, Alabama. Kenny McIntosh, a guy we've talked about a few times. Ricky Stromberg, he double dipped on the center. I wonder if one of those guys is going to project to be a guard too. I don't know. Dorian Thompson Robinson, quarterback out of UCLA, and then Justin Shorter, receiver out of Florida. So it's interesting. I mean, obviously, BB going back, you're going to have to, retcon that one. Boot, probably still a little high for him. Probably like Whippler, like Anderson. I like getting defensive interior. I like Kenny McIntosh. So again, I don't mind a quarterback late. I like a receiver late. Overall, I like some of the players here. Any thoughts from you on this one?
I kind of like that trade for the cornerback from the Patriots.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that. Yeah.
It's not Jack Jones. It's the other one named Jones.
Is it Marcus?
I think it's Marcus Jones.
Is that the
pick six
return
guy?
Man?
Yeah, returner.
Yeah. He's small though.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess for depth, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think realistically, when we do trade, if we do trade Hop, like, I don't expect the haul to be massive. I think some people are thinking we're gonna get all of Midas's silver, but it's probably going to be more. Honestly, probably maybe more in this range of what we're seeing.
Yeah, I will say this. There's the one thing that gives me a pause with thinking we might get a better haul than people think. Like I did a video about what's his trade value, and I did that based on comps, right? And I think the Devontae Adams is kind of the upside, right? But it might be a little less than that because Hopkins is a comparable player to Adams, but he's going to be like a year and a half older than Adams was at the time of trade, and that's going to matter. But like the receiver class in the draft isn't great, and the receiver class in free agency isn't great. And Hopkins' value might be a little higher because of the scarcity. So that's the one caveat to that, where it's like, well, if you're a team that feels like you need a receiver to put you over the top, and you're an elite receiver away, maybe you would trade a first round pick. If you're that good, it's a late first round pick. So I'm a little more hopeful that it might be.
Maybe Jacksonville throws their hat in the ring and think, but D-Hop's, because Zay Jones had a great season. DeAndre Hopkins would be a lot better in that slot than he would,
Yeah. So we'll see.
That's DeAndre's sole purpose now, is just getting traded to teams with rookie wide receiver or rookie quarterbacks that just need a proven wide receiver to help him.
He finds the right one.
Yeah.
Well, and obviously in the news, he's meeting with, I don't know if he's already met with him, but meeting with Austin Fort to talk about his future. So we'll see what a lot of people think means he's definitely getting traded, but I don't know. I mean, I think there's a distinct possibility that, after that meeting that he's sticking around. I think Austin Fort really wants to see where his head's at. Right. So we'll see, but yeah. All right. So then we have Gazornik Brian, who I believe was in here. Maybe he wasn't in here earlier. He really good dude that got to know through the channel and Discord. So he's got Jalen Carter first. I like that. Keely Ringo in the second round. I like the value there. Zach Harrison, who was on mine. He's got Luke Whippler. You got to have a center. Then he went double dipped with another cornerback who, we talked about was thought of as a first round pick, but now is slid down. Jackson Kirkland, a guard out of Washington. Braden Daniels, a tackle out of Utah. Braden's been on some of my drafts, and he's like a little bit smaller, like 290 something a tackle, so it's a little small. So it seems like, and I don't know a lot about him, but that to me tells me maybe he's a little more of a zone kind of athletic, and maybe even a guy you look at moving into guard or even center. I don't know, but he played pretty well. It looked like based on the grades. Warren McClendon, who I believe is a right tackle and has been, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's a guy I put in some drafts. And Muhammad Ibrahim, that's been halfback out of Minnesota, who's been on some drafts. So again, I like Jalen Carter. I like getting Keely Ringo in the second round. I like the positions. We're seeing this shows me that a lot of Cardinals fans are on the same page in terms of our need based on the positions, right? So yeah, I like it. What are your thoughts?
No, I really like this pick actually, or this draft. I kind of like Keely Ringo in that later second round, or not later second round. Oh no, Joe, you left.
I'm here. I have to let my cat out.
Oh, okay. I did hear him later or earlier. No, so I like Keely in that second because I think, as mentioned before, he has a lot of upside, and we're still getting Luke Whippler. Can't go wrong there. So yeah, I think this is a good mix of trenches and some nice cornerback pickups, because I think that is a position that we're still trying to address. Again, we like Byron, we like Marco. After that, it's kind of a big old question mark. I mean, there's that Worky who had his ups and downs. We'll see. Really kind of depend on who our defensive coordinator / head coach is this year.
Yeah, Paul likes this draft, I think, right? Yeah. So yeah, I think this is a good draft. Yeah, I for all the reasons that you said that I didn't hear, but I often find myself taking a tackle later, especially if I can find someone who can be a right tackle or a swing tackle. I sometimes get a guard in there. But yeah, I like this one a lot. So I think you did a really good job, Brian. And we have gotten through all of our mock drafts. Only an hour and 35 minutes. But yeah, so here we are, first mock draft Monday of the season. I see a lot of interesting things. Any general observations from that you want to kind of mention, Troy?
I mean, other than we've kind of beat a dead horse here, but focus on the trenches. Teams. There's kind of a contradicting, or maybe more emphasis on the coaching, but that Bengals-Bills game, that Bengals had pretty much an entire backup offensive line. Didn't matter. Still lit up the Bills. You could either say that you almost could use as an argument for or against good trench play, because you say the Bills lack good trench play and that's why they couldn't make a difference, or you could say that the Bengals, it didn't matter as long as they had a good game plan. Again, it's all about coaching and adjusting, which I think Cliff wasn't always particularly well adept at doing. So yeah, again, a lot of footballs, it's evolved a lot in the past 100 years or so, but the initial principles all kind of remain the same, and if you can win the trenches, you're usually winning the game.
I think you're right. I mean, I think that's where you build with this. That's what this team needs. And then also, just from a roster building perspective, those are positions where players tend to have longer careers if you get a good one, 10 to 15 years. So I want to build that offensive line and then add the pieces. And add to that, if you can get a good offensive line, you can get away with having mediocre receivers and skill position. If you've got a good quarterback, which I believe we do, and a good offensive line, you can, with third round or with day 3 running backs, you can be effective in the run game, and you have enough time. You just need 1 or 2 decent pass catchers. You can have a functional offense that way. And if you build a good defense, with that offensive line, that's what the Patriots did. Like, they didn't have great receivers very often through their stretches, right? They had a few good slot receivers. They had Randy Moss at one point, but it was a lot of, guys like Wes Welker, in the middle, right? And, slot guys. So get that offensive line right. So fix the trenches. I agree.
It's kind of funny. Like, a lot of the playoff teams left, like the Bengals kind of fly in the face of that, I guess you can say. Or some people are taking the Bengals, Jamar and the, really good skill positions, good line, and a good quarterback, and that'll get you far. And I mean, it's so far it's working for them. Joe Burrow's been lights out these past weeks. He's just been insane. But they're a balanced team. Their defense is good. They're playing well. Yeah. So it's just fun. There's a couple different ways to skin a cat. So we're seeing it, and that's what makes football fun. There's many ways to win, and it's fun watching how every team kind of finds their own success.
Yeah, for sure. We didn't get any Michael Schmidt last 20 minutes. I assure you we will get a lot more next week, though, now that people know what's there, right? Cruz with the Spooter with the super chat. Thank you so much. What do you think we are looking like in regards to salary cap? I did something of this in my video. As it stands, after we cut Robbie Anderson, which we're all but certain to do, and probably after what happens with Rodney Hudson, I know they did some stuff with Watt's contract. I don't know. There's some moving pieces because we don't know who's going to be back and not back, and if they're going to let's trade people like Hopkins, that affects that. But I think we're projected to have somewhere between 30 and 40 million in cap space after we make some of those moves, like cutting that's 12 million, cap savings when we cut Robbie Anderson. I think we're gonna have somewhere in that 30 to 40 million in space when it's all said and done, but we've got to re-sign some of our guys, right?
Yeah, I think Kyle Odegaard did a tweet on it today, so go check out his feed, and I think it kind of lays it out too.
Yeah, okay, cool.
So.
So check out Kyle Odegaard. He's probably got a better answer for you there.
But I mean, I think it's the same answer, but I think visualizations and such of it.
Right. Kyle does good work too, for sure. Paul G saying, Sarah, look how fast Jaguars turn things around. We can do the same. Absolutely. Listen, you can turn around an NFL team very quickly. We've talked about this before. I
love the Giants.
Yeah, right. The Giants, and I know I've given this example many times before, but a few years back, the Dolphins had the worst roster I remember ever seeing. And within 2 years, they were like really competitive. And we are not that bad right now. Like, we have some pieces. So absolutely I think the best case scenario is 2023. We are a team that is chippy and wins 7 or 8 games and maybe sniffs wild card contention. That's best case scenario, playing ahead with a good coach over our heads. And 2024, we can get things right and compete for a playoff if we get the right moves, right? That's not out of the realm possibility.
And another example, like the Bengals, when they drafted Joe Burrow, he got hurt pretty early in his rookie season. Everyone hated Zach Taylor. They thought Burrow's lost a year of development. The roster didn't seem that good. It was pretty doom and gloom there. And look what happened. Yeah. Super Bowl appearance and AFC championship so far. So things happen quick.
Absolutely. So, okay. Thank you to everyone who's here hanging out with us. We're going to do this every week unless there's some reason that I have to cancel for something, maybe if I'm out of town, but for the most part, just about every week, Monday, Mock Draft Mondays. We're going to get different folks. Troy will be back with us, but I'm going to probably rotate people here every week. So he'll be back, but won't be here every week with us. But, it's always great hanging out with you, Troy. If you want your mock draft in the live stream, in the description of the video, I list how to do that. Do a mock draft, tweet it at me. Make sure you tag me in it and tweet me, or you can submit it to me on Discord if you're in there. Get it to me by Monday afternoon. Don't, I think someone asked if it's too late, within a couple hours before the show, I'm doing some prep stuff. And so it's a little late, but if you get it to me, sometime by the afternoon Monday, I will get it in. I try to get every mock draft on. So please do that. We definitely want your mock drafts. And I'm looking forward to learning about these prospects with all of you all. And the John Michael Schmidt song, that will be a thing. So if you got John Michael Schmidt in your draft, the short one, I'll be playing that. And as we get out of here, I'll play the song for y'all one more time before we get out of here. But Troy, anything you want to say before we get out of here? Any shout outs or anything?
No, this is fun. I'm really had a good time with this. I'm sure I'll be on in future ones for sure. Maybe it'll be interesting to see how all of our drafts evolve as the news changes between coaching hires, trades, combine kind of stuff. We'll see. But yeah, I'm excited to see it this week. Hopefully we get some more clarity on the head coaching. I hope we don't hire a head coach this week because I want DeMeco Ryans, and he won't be able to interview till later, so we'll see. But yeah, just keep your eyes peeled because I'm sure if a head coach is announced, we'll probably have to do an emergency show or something. But
probably will be doing that. Yes, So
yeah, no, I'm stoked, and came to see you guys. Well, I'll be in the audience next week, but it'll be a good time.
For sure. Paul, this was a blast. I agree. Thank you all for being here. This is definitely the most fun thing I do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get us out on the song. We'll play it one more time, and then I will be posting that on social media and on my channel. So if you just want to jam to John Michael, he's our center Schmitz, that will be available to you once I get a chance to upload that. And then we'll do our shout outs for our channel members. So thank you all for being here. We'll see y'all next time. Peace.
John Michael, he's our center Schmitz. His name's on my draft too. at John Michael, he's our Center Schmitz.